Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being here. And Michael, just want to start with this latest news we're getting about these F-16s being promised by the Netherlands and Denmark. President Zelensky calling this historic. What do you make of it? Could this be really a shot in the arm for Ukraine and its counteroffensive?
Well, yeah, it's a very big deal. It's something that Ukraine has been asking for the longest time. The United States dragged its feet for quite some time because no country can send F-16s to Ukraine without the permission of the U.S. The White House thought this would be an escalatory move, but they came round. Having said that, it's going to take a while to train the pilots to get these sophisticated pieces of machinery over there, to integrate them in the so-called military envelope. Some analysts are talking about these things being in the air perhaps next year sometime. And as we've seen, the counteroffensive on the Ukrainian side is going a lot slower than expected. And a big reason for that is the Russians have time to dig in, put in minefields, all kinds of other barriers as well. So Ukraine is looking at the end of the day for air superiority, which Russia has over them right now, but it will take some time.
And of course, you are now in South Africa ahead of this week's BRICS Summit. The war in Ukraine likely to be on the agenda there. What are we expecting to hear about the conflict from a very interesting group of nations, obviously, when it comes to the war in Ukraine, including Russia itself?
Sure, it's going to be fascinating to watch. The president of South Africa, Mr. Ramaphosa, gave a long live speech to the nation just a few moments ago. And in it, he said that, South Africa respects the sovereignty, territorial integrity of nations. Surprisingly, they also said that they're working to get those hundreds of children that were forcibly deported to Russia back to Ukraine. They're working on the exchange of POWs. So it seems there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we didn't know about previously. Of course, the other big thing, this affects most BRICS members in most countries here on the African continent, is getting the grain moving across the Black Sea from Ukraine into a lot of countries here that desperately need it. The agreement is in tatters right now. As you know, Russia has been relentlessly bombing Ukrainian port infrastructure, where I'm based in Odessa, and also those ports along the Danube. So a lot to get done. And of course, President Putin will be a no-show. He's sending Mr. Lavrov, his foreign minister, instead. But Putin will be here virtually. And as Mr. Ramaphosa put it, he's going to be here in spirit. So let's see what happens on that front.
Well, what do you make of that absence of Vladimir Putin? And obviously, we know that there would have been a potential that he could have been arrested if he'd actually set foot in South Africa, because he has a warrant out for his arrest in the International Criminal Court.
Yeah, I think it shows two things. Number one, that he's scared. The South African president said that his virtual attendance was by mutual agreement, whatever that means. But I don't think South Africa wanted to be put in that position where they may have to arrest who is arguably still an ally. And the other thing it shows is that Russia is becoming increasingly isolated. I mean, not to be here with one of their key partners, China, and also, by the way, India, the Indian Mr. Modi will be here, Brazil will be here. That's a pretty big deal. So it'll be interesting to see how this is spun at home in Russia by their PR machine. But definitely it shows that he has to watch his step in order to avoid being arrested on that ICC warrant.
Michael, the host nation of the BRICS Summit this year, South Africa, has been struggling mightily recently, even just providing electricity to the country. You've been speaking with people there. What have they been telling you about what they see and how they view this summit?
Well, before I answer that, I just got to say quickly, in the speech tonight, I think Mr. Ramaphosa really went out of his way to show what foreign policy can do for the average South African, what the BRICS Summit can do. He said that, for example, South Africa has received something like 100 billion rand from the Development Bank of the BRIC countries. But yeah, I've spoken to about a dozen people on the ground here. And, I was last here many years ago for the World Cup, and it's, I think, actually gotten worse for the average South African. They talk of being really fatigued just to make ends meet. Many working 2 or 3 jobs, hearing a lot about the cost, for example, of cooking oil going up 40, 50%, fish oil, by 200% petrol prices. And I asked everyone I bump into, do they have high expectations for this summit? Most either say no or they'll adopt a wait and see attitude. The other thing, Carl, that's really interesting is I asked them about their attitudes towards Russia and Mr. Putin, and many of them say they actually have affections for Russia, and I think that goes back to Russia's support here, for the ANC during the apartheid years, providing arms, that sort of thing. So it's interesting that, again, Mr. Putin isn't coming to perhaps bathe in an environment like that, if we can put it that way, during this time.
Michael Bossaque, a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center and Global Affairs analyst. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.